Can you?
It's okay.
Are we low?
You're good. You're good now. I just turned mine up a little bit.
All right. Let me just get up the banner because I definitely want people to know about your what we're going to talk about today, and all that good stuff. Let's see if I can blow the screen up for the people here watching. All right. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is Angela McCardle. She is the LNC chair right now. What I invited her to come and speak to us, what I wanted to talk about is on February 17th, this Defeat the Deep State rally. And you can find more information at Rage Against the War. Let me get that.
RageAgainstWar.com.
And yes, RageAgainstTheWar.com. And then also, we're going to talk about the LP National Convention, which happens May 23rd and 27th. So go ahead, Angela, if you would like, and tell us about the meeting or the rally.
Absolutely. So, I'm really excited that we're going to put together another rally. Last February, the Libertarian Party partnered with a smaller left-wing populist third party called the People's Party. And we got together and we said, war is it's such a serious issue. The way things are looking with Ukraine and Russia right now, and NATO's encroachment on Russia's border and how they're reacting to that. We really need to step up and say something. And, we were pleased that a handful of sort of dissident right-wingers were agreeing that war was bad because, Republicans are generally fairly good with fiscal policy, but not so good with foreign policy. And so we were pleasantly surprised to see that, some working class people and alternative right-wing media voices were pushing back against it. But of course, the Republicans who were elected into Congress and the Senate, they were mostly just going right along with it. So we were really concerned because you're like, wow, you've got a majority of people in Congress who might be okay with literally going to war. So we got together and we reached out to as many anti-war groups as we could, lots of them left-wing, people who were a little bit skeptical, nervous to work with libertarians. They've heard that we like war, or they've heard that we just hate poor people, or that, I don't know, we kick orphans and widows, ridiculous things. And I said, well, why don't you set all those misconceptions aside and let's work together on this? Because, this is a unifying moment for us. We're all concerned about what is a very real existential threat. We don't want our government spending all of our taxpayer dollars to support foreign wars, especially unconstitutional wars. We don't want to see the soldiers and drafted people who did not sign up, to be in the military in Ukraine. We don't want to see them put through the meat grinder of war. We don't want to see Russian soldiers murdered. The whole thing is just a nightmare. And so many people came and supported the cause. They got involved. They sponsored. We held an amazing rally. We had about 3,000 attendees in person from the left and the right. We had Ron Paul, Dennis Kucinich, Tulsi Gabbard, Jill Stein, a lot of really powerful speakers there, Scott Horton, members of the dissident left as well, people like Max Blumenthal, who Chris Hedges. It was really amazing. It was really exciting, and it was a very positive event. It was very high energy. I felt very blessed to co-host it and to lead it with Nick Brana, the chair of the People's Party. And we're getting the gang back together and we're doing it again this year. So this year, what we're really talking about is the deep state and how the deep state needs to be abolished if we want to end these forever wars and United States wars for empires overseas. Those are, I think, they're very important concepts, and they're very extremely connected. And we don't always talk about how the deep state props up the war machine. And so we've decided, you know what, we're going to hold a rally about it. We're going to jump right in. So we are in the planning stages right now. We've got Dan McAdams of the Ron Paul Institute signed on to speak. We've got Gerald Salente, who I absolutely adore. We've got Keith Knight of the Libertarian Institute. We have Craig Pastajardula. He's a left-wing anti-war advocate. You've got a handful of others that are about to announce. Tara Reid is going to be sending in a message, and certainly we're inviting back a lot of our big name speakers like Dennis Kucinich, Kim Iverson, and so on and so forth. And we're going to be trying to get our Libertarian presidential candidates involved too. Let's talk about the list of demands. We want to really highlight how important it is for Julian Assange to be freed. That's our number one demand for this rally. Julian Assange has a court date coming up in London. It's scheduled for February 20th and 21st. And they're going to decide at that date whether or not they're shipping him back to the United States. And, his brother, Gabriel Shipton, made this really powerful documentary called Ithaca that explains the trials and tribulations of Julian Assange since he's been wrongfully incarcerated and detained, without trial and due process. It's quite atrocious. There have been CIA plots to poison him. He's been spied on in the Ecuadorian embassy. They're slowly trying to kill him, and it's really awful. And so we really want to highlight that. We want to highlight how important his freedom is. He's not committed any crimes. He's actually not a whistleblower. He's just a journalist. He never took an oath to not disclose documents. He never came across anything like in his line of work that he had pledged to not disclose. He is literally a reporter. It's no different than a New York Times reporter, except, maybe there are some people at the New York Times who might be a little bit more deserving of this terrible treatment. But it's about journalistic integrity. It's about freedom of speech. If it could happen to Julian Assange, it could happen to anyone. He's not even a United States citizen. He's Australian. He's been held now for 10 years, and we've got to get him free. We also want to highlight the importance of pardoning all whistleblowers and people like Edward Snowden. We want to see the abolition of the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Department of Homeland Security. There's an ice cream truck going by me right now. I don't know if you can hear it. It's quite loud. We want to abolish the military-industrial complex, and we demand for what people on the left call the abolition of the corporate state, which is when things like when the United States government takes over Twitter to the point that it becomes effectively a mouthpiece of the state, and all that crazy stuff that we saw when the Twitter files were released. And the same thing, of course, happens with Facebook and Google, and how Google is now, acting as a mouthpiece for government to censor things and call them a sensitive event and rewrite history at the direction of the United States government. So we have come together to highlight all of the abuses of the deep state, to call for an end to it, and to say that the United States should not engage in war overseas, that we should not be propping up regimes overseas, that we shouldn't be enabling NATO to encroach on other countries' borders, especially not with our tax dollars, and trying to foment war overseas. No more American, violent empire. We want peaceful foreign policy. We are ready to join forces with people of other political backgrounds to make it happen, and we're excited to do it. So our rally is February 17th in front of the Washington Memorial in Washington, D.C., 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. We will continue to release the names of our speakers over the next couple of weeks. Very excited. And if you're interested in attending, we would love for you to attend. And of course, we're still fundraising right now and looking for additional sponsors. We have to raise quite a bit of cash in order to pay for the stage, the sound system, security, we have to have porta potties, all that good stuff. So if you're interested in checking it out and you'd like to support us, please visit defeatthedeepstate.org or rageagainstwar.com.
Okay. From the last rally, how did it do for our membership and fundraising?
Something that's really nice is we were able to get contact information for a bunch of potential new prospects. We had people decide that they were going to get active again in the party after that rally. It was a huge boost for us internally. It greatly expanded our prospecting list for members and donors.
Good. Does anyone have a question about the rally coming up? Okay. So that's great to hear that y'all are doing that. That was one thing that I've always wanted to see the LP do, and I haven't, for the time that I've been here, and it's only been since 2010, really, I've never really seen the LP get out there and do. I want to see a flash of some sort.
That was the biggest non-presidential related event that the Libertarian Party has ever done.
Really? That's good to hear. And I know you get a lot of backlash and things of that nature. I watch from X and Twitter or whatever you want to call it. And it's kind of disheartening because, you want to see people rally together.
Yeah.
A little bit more than what they do. Okay. So that's February 17th, 11/5. Now we're going to talk about the National Convention. The LP is also going to be in D.C.
Yes.
How is that going right now? Is the ticket sales and we're going to have a good turnout?
Oh, yeah. Ticket sales are looking good. I believe last month, December, we sold about $44,000 worth of convention packages. Cool. And this month, we've already sold over $11,000 in convention revenue. So it is looking really good. We still do need to sell more, but I'm very, optimistic. It's early. We've got several months until the convention. We are going to be having some really awesome speakers that we're going to be releasing this week. We've got a comedy night lined up. I have scoured the internet and the comedy scenes to bring you really good libertarian comedy. And so I'm very excited that that's going to be happening. We have a guy coming who is a very good Bitcoin expert. Can you hear that? Any idea what that noise is? Weird. We have, what else have we got? We've got Bitcoin. We've got a prominent member of the medical freedom community who is coming. Just giving you teasers since we haven't officially launched it yet, and I don't want to spoil it. Bitcoin, we've got a day of training planned. Right now, we're doing an online series of courses called LP Masterclass, where we have the best libertarians who are teaching you how to do petitioning, how to do signature gathering, all things related to ballot access. Carla Howell is doing a course called Who's Driving that I think is very excellent about driving the narrative and doing it from a position of strength and radicalism in a way that's also professional. We've got, what else have we got? There's a class happening tonight, actually, at 8 p.m. Eastern. We've got 4 or 5 speakers. We've got Nathan Fatal of the Leadership Institute doing courses. We have one non-libertarian, Jose Vega, who has done the viral town hall disruptions on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. He is going to be teaching everybody how to go viral at these town halls if you want to do it, how to make it successful, and how to make sure you get a lot of media attention for it. Okay. We've got a couple other courses and just can't think of them all off the top of my head, but that's some really good stuff. And we're going to be continuing it live in person at the convention. Oh, Diego with Defend the Guard and Bring Our Troops Home. He's also doing trainings live at National.
Okay, that's good because I know you had, did you say Bill Redpath? Because I know he was on there.
Yes. Yeah, he's doing one on petitioning. In fact, I think he did the first one, which was like a teaser class back in October, and we're doing it again. Cool.
So I don't know if you've announced, are you planning on running for chair again?
Yeah, absolutely. I am running for chair again. I'm going to be a 2-term chair. That's my intention. I think 3 terms is too much, but 2 is good. It's a tremendous amount of work to take an organization that needs to be upgraded and slog through all of the bureaucratic mess to the point where you can make change and do it quickly. So we had a lot of work in the beginning, but we are now moving at like rapid speed.
Right. What has been your success and failures when you look back
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. So let me talk about like challenges, successes, and vision for the future. So, I think one of my failures, and this is going to be controversial, the less controversial one first is I underestimated the degree of bitterness and infighting that would happen after the Reno convention. I thought that people would be more willing to work together and get along, and that was not correct, obviously. Um, if I could do things differently, I would have aggressively changed staff right at the beginning of the term. I thought that was going to be too ugly. I thought paid staff is going to do whatever I ask them to do, within reason, and that was just not the case. They were not. They didn't want to go with the new administration, and so there was a tremendous amount of sabotage. There was a lot of fighting with staff, tremendous clashes between new staff and old staff, and it was just very ugly. It slowed us down quite a bit. That puts me in a position where I have to be careful that I don't do the wrong thing because these are not volunteers; these are paid staff, and there could potentially be legal liability. And of course, some of them were absolutely gracious, and they're still with us, and I appreciate them. But that was a really difficult thing to navigate. We had some really hideous technical challenges right after we passed a plan, right? A strategic plan that we were going to follow through to build membership, to do this, to do that, XYZ. Someone on the board came in and made a motion to move us from one CRM to another, to move a good chunk of our data that was in a program called Razor's Edge over to Civi CRM, and it was a failure. It was a huge failure. I passed the gavel in that meeting and I argued against it. I said, this is, we don't have enough data. You've given us pie graphs, which if you're a data, like a tech person, that's a meaningless graph. That's a kindergarten graph. You haven't shown us how much money we can make. We don't know what our potential losses are. What if something goes wrong technically? And it did. And it was a lot more things going wrong than former staff anticipated. And it was a huge nightmare. It cost us a tremendous chunk of revenue. We're still cleaning up the mess, but we've at least overcome, the worst challenges of it, and we're very close. What else? What other challenges? And then I'll jump to the good stuff. I think that the party institutionally has had an inability to think long term because we don't have as much electoral success, especially not in the last 10 to 12 years. We prioritize internal party wins like chair, like LNC board, instead of prioritizing external party elections. And so we're always fighting to see who's going to be the next person in charge, which means that there's no continuity. Things change. When I came in, there was no institutional memory, like zero. And sure, I could be mad at the previous chair for that, but if we had proper institutional memory, we would have had a 1-year gap in institutional memory from the prior chair, who didn't even chair the entire term. It wasn't 2 years; it was about a year. And then I would have had everything else. We didn't have that. I dug through Elpedia. I looked at old staff reports, but there is no succession plan, and that's not the right way to do it. When I am no longer chair, whether it's someone who I want to take my place and I've endorsed, or whether I lose an election or whatever, I'll be sure that whoever it is who takes my place understands that here's what staff has been doing. These are the successes and failures that we've had internally. This is what makes money. This is what doesn't. Like, that just didn't exist. The former executive director gave me a brief, drink from the fire hose rundown over, a period of several days, but he didn't have things written down. It was just very little. So that's a real problem. And I think that it's an institutional problem. We have to kind of like decide that we want to overcome that because we want to be successful, because we need that problem to resolve if we want to win external elections. Another problem that we have is all of our members have very different ideas about what libertarians should be doing, what the party should be doing, what matters most, what's the most libertarian or the most important libertarian cause. And we have very high standards, and they're just all over the place. So it can be difficult when you're reaching out to donors to pledge, promise, commit to them that X, Y, and Z will happen, because everything is changing and everybody has a different opinion. Sometimes I'll reach out to donors and, I'm what would you like to see the party accomplish in 2024? And they're like, they have TDS and they're like, just anything except Donald Trump in the White House. I'm like, what about like war, the economy, inflation? They're like, no, I just hate Donald Trump. Okay, and then you have people who are just like, what can I do for you? I've been a longtime supporter. What is it? I just want to see more libertarians get elected, maybe at the local level. The most important thing for me is war. Thank you for opposing war. Or, oh, it's inflation. It can be very varied. And that's that can be a good thing. But when people are very emotional about it and demanding, it can be challenging. It's difficult to please everyone. But I think
just say real quick, there was a gentleman, he said that he strongly recommends everyone use free open source software, AI encrypted, offline, decentralized, as much as possible. 95% there. I don't know if you can see it on the screen there, what he wrote.
Yep.
Okay. So he said that. Have y'all discussed using AI to try to help speed up?
So yeah, we have several. We are moving CRMs, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We've had it's not quite so simple as just use AI. We're certainly going to be incorporating certain elements of AI into our fundraising appeals and streamlining staff processes so they can work a little bit faster and more efficiently. But when it comes to the CRMs, like, they've got to be highly customizable and they've got to be very granular in what we can do, because, membership dates, different types of memberships, all of that has not been taken care of very well. It's kind of been all over the place. It hasn't been documented very well. People come in and they do like little Band-Aid code, and then someone else does a Band-Aid code, and things just get all jumbled. And then you go in, you try to fix something, and then it breaks something else, and then it breaks something else. So customizable, very important, but it also really matters the way that you customize things. So, we've looked at a couple of vendors, HubSpot, Zoho, a handful of others, and we'll be moving the National Party CRM to a new CRM that's recommended by my staff, but also by the IS committee. I need to make sure that I have a handful of highly competent people who are making the call on that. Now, for state affiliates who use Civi CRM, we're not tearing the rug out from under anyone. We're going to have at least 2 years where we continue to service Civi CRM full time. And if that sounds like insane and like too much work, you're correct. We're already behind on our upkeep of the CRM. It is a hot mess, as I mentioned. But when we switch the national party operations, we're not going to be doing that upkeep on our own. Oh, no, we have a third-party vendor who will be servicing us. So I won't have my technical staff spending all day trying to solve problems, trying to hard code things. That's no longer an issue for the national party. They will be focused on servicing Civi CRM for our state affiliates. And at the end of the 2-year period, we're going to see where we're at with it. I'm not ever going to recommend that we just shut it down and turn the lights off. We may continue the program if it becomes fixed and more profitable. We may develop a way to bring our state affiliates over to whatever we're using at that time, or we may end up selling it to some of the state affiliates if they decide that they want to assume responsibility for it, and then they can create their own organization. But whatever it is, it's going to be a 2-year process, and we'll make sure we have lots of input on it.
I can tell you, being a past state chair, that we're already looking at different vendors because it's so hard. We've discussed it already. So a couple of them that you said are actually some that were rung up. So we haven't made a final decision on that yet, but definitely CRM has been terrible, and we're trying to find a way to make things easier on people to get the message out.
I can hear you, but not super well. I'm trying to listen. You're a state, a chair, and you're looking to move CRMs?
the past state chair. We're looking at moving away from CRM also, so it's too hard. It's been too hard for people to keep up with, trying to get everything the best. So
Yep.
so we've been, what you mentioned, we're up in our discussion too. So
Makes sense. So let me talk though about some of the successes that we've had. We talked about, yeah, I see this comment. Yeah, definitely. Me too. So we talked about the successes of last year's rally, and that was really amazing. We have LP Masterclass going on right now. We're doing a ton of candidate trainings this year. We have LP Masterclass happening right now. Prior to that, I did a training that was put on by United Independence, which is like a united, it's a coalition group for independent candidates and third parties. And so we had candidate and activist training available through that. That started in October. We have LP News. I don't know if anybody's visited it yet, but if you go to news.lp.org, we have a libertarian news site. It's amazing. It looks sort of like the Fee Online's old website. You can submit articles there as long as they're written, professional quality, like 500 to 800 words. You can advertise on the site. Articles will always stay there. They'll just, as they get older, fall to the bottom of the site. And so it'll be amazing. Maybe we'll be able to compete with Reason Magazine, and we'll have a news site that's actually complimentary and friendly to libertarian candidates in the party. So I'm super excited about that. We have a beautiful new store, shop.lp.org, that our wonderful volunteer Carrie Eiler and our marketing contractor Matt Hudson put together. Tons of merch, seasonal merch too. She just put up some awesome Valentine's libertarian merch right now with little candy hearts that say small gov, no gov, things like that. That's been a great moneymaker and really fun. We had 39 candidates elected last year, and I think a couple have been appointed since then. And that's really, really great considering that that's an off year, 2023. We've had some new hires. I'm about to hire a new political director, Nathan Fatal, who will be doing part-time consulting with candidates. The goal is to have 2 Zoom calls a month where candidates can jump on and ask him any sort of Q&A. He'll be giving campaign consulting on an ongoing basis and, emailing people and following up with them at his discretion. I'm super excited about all of that. He'll be very available, and also will be holding institutional memory with it because he'll be documenting his notes and sharing it with everyone and with me and the rest of staff, which is really important. We've also had several state affiliates who've done, they've introduced Defend the Guard legislation into their state houses, and the legislation was actually picked up and it passed through committee. I believe most of them were just barely missed a vote in the House, but that's really cool considering that was a first time attempt for most of our parties. So, we've been engaging our members in policy. We have a members only Discord server as well, where you can find out what else is going on, libertarian news, all that good stuff. What else? The financials. So, due to technical problems and the ones that I'd mentioned, and I think a couple of other staffing issues, our finances were in pretty bad shape the first half of 2023. And I stepped into the role of executive director in August. So I've been filling the role of executive director pro bono. And in August, I believe we had monthly revenue of about $74,000. Now, to be fair, July and August are always poor months for political fundraising and for nonprofits. January is usually really rough too. In the summer, people are going on vacation or they just went and so they don't have money. And in January, everybody just, blew their cash on Christmas presents. In September, we passed, I believe we had $103,000 or $105,000 in monthly revenue. In October, it shot up to $180,000, partially because people were pushing to have their memberships in so that they can increase the amount of delegates that they get, for the upcoming convention. The goal was 125 and we shot up to 180. In November, we had $126,000, I believe, in monthly revenue. And in December, I think it was between, let's see, 144, it was around $140,000 to $145,000 in monthly revenue. So we have had a complete financial turnaround. It's fantastic. It's really good news. And we're set to make at least $125,000 this month as well. My goal is that we start hitting 125K even without convention revenue. Right now that's including it, although I don't know that September and October included much of it. But yeah, so financially things have completely turned around. I'm very, very happy about that. And things are looking bright, so my vision for the future, right, is I want us to be focused on local elections. I want us to be winning and then sweeping at the local level. I want us to catch people off guard with that. I want us to build political experience and capital so that then we can start picking off vulnerable county and seat races and winning them. That I think is really important. I think we need more experience. I want us to begin crafting policy. I've spoken to a lot of our elected officials. When I say, what do you need help with? They're like, well, I mean, my job, right? Some of them sit in small town councils where they don't really do a lot of policy wonk stuff, but some of them are, they have other busybodies on their councils, on their committees, and they're trying to kind of combat that, or, oh, okay, someone proposed a new zoning thing, and trying to understand, like, what's the impact on the community? Is this going to make it more libertarian or less libertarian? So we need to begin spitting out volunteers that know how to craft policy. We need to dramatically increase our volunteer base. It's one of the reasons that I've hired Nathan Fatal, is because he's so skilled at drumming up volunteers. He worked with me on a couple of tremendous volunteer efforts in the city and county of Los Angeles to overturn mandates and to fight lockdowns. And so I've seen the work that he's done, and I'm very confident in it. I want us to build huge banks of volunteers, people who are ready and willing to go out there and make all the libertarian things that we want to see happen. And we need more rank and file membership. I want to see us turning more regular voters who they haven't read Man, Economy, and State. They don't know anything about Rothbard. I want to see these people turning libertarian, right? They're like, look, I don't have time to do all of that. I'm very busy. I run a small business. I have kids. They have soccer practice, but my taxes were high. And so-and-so, made me change the sign of my small business because they said it was some county code thing. And I'm tired of that crap. And so I'm going to vote libertarian. And we need people who vote lockstep libertarian and who support the Libertarian Party and things of that nature, even if they don't have time to get educated. People who are just always going to support us. So, my plan is to start creating more of those people, creating more volunteers, building wins at the local level, and eventually building an infrastructure that will support a very serious presidential race that threatens the two parties, not just in a spoiler way, but in a, we might actually win it this year kind of way. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take time. My job is to lay the foundation for all of that and to hopefully pass it along to the next person who comes after me with mentorship, with proper tools, with institutional memory, with all the documentation they need so that we can succeed and succeed and succeed.
Right.
Any questions?
Do y'all have any questions?
Yeah, well, let me disclaimer here. This is my first Libertarian meeting I've attended. I served on my county school board for 2 terms, and I've often wondered why I haven't seen many, if any, Libertarian candidates on the ballot at the local level. The problem that you run into if you don't have that experience at the local level is you don't have the name recognition.
Yep.
You don't have the experience operating in a parliamentary sort of Robert's rules sort of environment. And I've just often wondered why there hasn't been a whole lot of any more libertarian participation in local elections. For example, my county school board, we had 2 incumbents that decided not to run again, and there was only one candidate that ran in each of those districts, so it was unopposed. And I mean,
Yeah.
that would have been a perfect opportunity right there, at least, to have an opposing candidate to get that name recognition out there. Oh yeah, I remember that person. They ran for District 1 school board. So I'm not sure what the answer is. Again, I'm a newbie, so I'm trying to rock the boat or anything, but that's just a thought that I had. I've always have wondered why there aren't you don't see libertarian candidates at the local level.
Well, you're correct. So there's a couple of reasons, right? One, there's not really enough of us. Two, we don't do a very good job of picking up the phone and trying to recruit people. Ted Brown in California used to do a very good job of this. He would call registered libertarians and say, hey, do you want to run for office in this position? The other problem, and I say this with love, is that a lot of our candidates get very excited about running for office. They get hyped up. They envision themselves, debating whoever it is, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Lindsey Graham, whoever, having their media moment, and they run vanity races. And, the reality is that mainstream media has contempt for us. They're not going to give us attention. When they occasionally give us attention, it's just negative attention, but they usually don't give us any attention at all. And so those races aren't as fruitful. Now, certainly we have to do some races like that to gain ballot access. And we need those races, and they're important, and they support down ticket candidates, and they support our presidential candidate as well. But we really do need to shift our focus quite a bit to local races, because that's, as if you've been on a school board, like that's where you can make some serious changes. It's at the local level.
Well, I think over time, you'll begin to see success at higher levels once you build that base at the local level, who then, move up from the minors into the majors, to use a baseball analogy. But, I think it's very important that, baby steps, build that base at the local level, get them so that they get that name recognition, and then once, run for the House of Delegates, or run for the state Senate. But I just think it's very, very important to get more folks involved at the local level, running for local office.
Absolutely agreed.
Does anyone else have a question? One question that I have, and this comes up from a lot of guys at my workplace, is I know this year we'll be selecting our candidate for president. A lot of people are wondering, are we able to select our president earlier? Is there anything? Because that way because we already are behind the 8 ball.
Yep.
When it comes to all of these issues that are coming up, but they're like, who's your candidate? I don't know. That's in May. Has there been any discussion moving the convention up earlier, or even into like this year, or I guess I should say 2023?
I've pushed really hard for us to move it up, even if it's just by a couple of weeks. The challenge is that Texas and I think Colorado have really late. It's a legal issue. Texas has to have their convention fairly late, like in April, their state convention, and then they decide who their delegates are and ship them off. So if we hold it earlier in March or April, then we miss out on delegates from some of our key states. And so then they'd have to maybe have like a separate nominating convention or do it like the prior year. I agree, though. Ultimately, we have to figure out a way to do it earlier. What I've pushed for the 2026 convention is I'm like, can we have it 2 weeks earlier? Like, can we just make like a little bit of incremental progress on it?
Right. Because that's the big thing. Another thing that and I don't even know if it ever gets talked about, but like if I go to work at 5 o'clock when I punch in and I turn on the television, you'll see Adam and Eve, sex toys, things of that nature, like infomercials. Have we ever discussed maybe doing infomercials? Because that's how Ross Perot, I remember back in 92, he I feel we should be, when we have our convention, we need to buy the ad. The reason media don't cover us is because we're not paying anything, giving them, it's a payola system. And I
For sure.
understand that. And that's one thing that we're trying to do here. We want to have billboards, and that's our plan for this year, is because we've got to start paying them so they'll cover us. What type of talk have y'all had?
We'll be doing electronic billboards. We'll be doing additional electronic advertising. There's like closed circuit television and smaller electronic billboards, like things in like waiting rooms, shopping centers, that sort of advertising. We'll be doing podcast ads for top podcast. So basically, if who's an example I can throw out who's not speaking at our convention? If Joe Rogan, was speaking, then we would run an ad on his podcast. So we'll be doing things like that to drive the people who are like interested in hearing our convention speakers, to drive them to our convention.
Okay.
We've already looked into the, like, I already have like a whole like cost thing. And we're also going to do some ads on conservative talk radio as well.
Good. Because, I mean, I know we've got to go through like the new media with social media, podcasts, things of that nature, but there is still something to be said. When we had a governor back in 2013, Rob Sarvis, and he did the best, but everyone knew about Rob Sarvis because of me. But when they saw a television commercial, they went, "Oh, you got a real candidate." It's like, even though he is a real candidate, until they saw that a newspaper clipping or the television, so I wanted to see what you had going on there.
Yeah, and we'll probably save things for television until we have our candidate nominated, because it is expensive. But I'm 100% in favor of doing it. From my perspective, people will get nervous or anxious or like, "Oh, that's not a good way to spend money. Oh, what if we don't have it?" And I look at it and I'm like, okay, so we got money in the bank account. Time to put it to use. We don't want to drain it down to zero, but if the dollars just like sit there and we never do anything and it just goes by year after year, like, what is the point of that? That is not a good way to operate.
Mike Termite, he's running for, seeking the nomination.
Mm-hmm.
When he spoke to us, one of his statements was, if you've got $100,000 in the bank account and you haven't spent it, then you've already lost. Because he said, we can't knock on, because there's not enough of us to knock on all the doors.
Yep.
But we can get television, newspaper, podcasts, whatever ads out there, radio ads, all that good stuff. So
absolutely, totally agree.
I guess so. I want to make sure, anyone have any questions? Are we all good? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'll look forward. I don't know if I'll be at the rally in February, but I will be at the national convention. So hopefully, do you know if there's anyone else that's declared that they're going to run for the chairship?
Mark Rutherford from Indiana.
Okay.
That's the only other person so far. Hannah Goodman is running for vice chair. Andrew Watkins, who's from Virginia, is still going to be on the LNC if he gets elected. He's running as an at-large member.
Okay.
So yeah, and Karen Ann Harlos is running for secretary. I'm not sure who's running for treasurer yet. Todd Hagopian has stated he doesn't intend to re-seek at this time.
All right. Well, thank you so much once again, and good luck with the future. We'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yep. Thank you.